So, hi everyone, welcome to another session of the Global Pakistan Tech Summit. This particular session is really important for me because we've been working with a lot of growth stage companies from Pakistan who happen to target the US market or target the global market, but work as a US entity. My name is Azhar Shazam. I represent Ijab Labs and Startup Trend in Pakistan. We do a number of activities to promote the startup and tech ecosystem, including running the largest technology exchange programs for Pakistan's IT industry to Silicon Valley, to Europe, to Canada, hopefully next year. And then we organized the flagship Pakistan Tech Summit, which was historically done outside Pakistan, but this global one is done virtually given the current situation. And so far, we've received some phenomenal response. I think today is the day 18 of the summit, and we have more than 150,000 people that we've reached, around 60,000 views on Facebook. There are 220 speakers, out of which 50% are women leaders. Now, coming to this session, so the title of the session is Expanding Your Business to the US with a focus on tax considerations, finance, and pricing strategies. It is my honor to introduce the two speakers who will be addressing you today. One of them happens to be a dear friend, so I'll just bring them on stage. So Zain Nensey is a CPA and has an MBA. He's currently the CFO of Omnipublic, and I'll let him introduce himself as well. Dr. Martins is the lead attorney and director at the Center for U.S. Immigration Services, a private law firm with headquarters in Tampa, Florida. Over to you both. Please, thank you so much for joining us, and over to you.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Salam. And we're excited to be addressing you all from Pakistan, from the United States. Excuse me. I'm very excited, especially about this summit, because coming from the US and knowing that you guys are all doing wonderful things in Pakistan and you're helping grow Pakistan's economy and exporting here, it makes my heart very warm because I believe that all of you are the solution for making Pakistan a prosperous country. We already know that it's safe. So to introduce myself, my name is Zain Nensey. I'm a CPA based here in Florida. If any of you like Disney World, I'm about 90 minutes from there, so please come visit. And I have a focus on international tax as well as business and corporation services. My friend here, Martins, is an immigration attorney. He has about 20 years of experience in his field. So today we're going to talk about how to expand your business to the United States. I know that Pakistan has a huge population of freelancers. I also know that you guys have a very large tech and startup focus, which makes me very excited. Now, we'll start with some tax considerations and finance considerations. And then for those of you who are more interested in that, we'll talk more about how to actually come to the United States to start your own business here or to bring your business to the United States. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is a very legal term. It's called effectively connected income. This is a US tax term. It's meant to describe any source of income that's located in the United States from the conduct of a trade or business. Now, this term is specifically for people who are doing business here. If you are exporting from Pakistan under the US-Pakistan tax treaty, what that essentially means is that you are based in Pakistan, your profits are taxed in Pakistan, and your presence here is limited to whatever exporting you're doing. Now, there may be some caveats based on the treaty itself, and if that's a question you have, we can talk about it for you. Now, if you decide that you want to come to the US on a business visa, which Martins will talk about in a little bit, then you have to be aware that once you open an office here, you have to consider that there are tax consequences for that within the United States. And that is mainly for active businesses. If you are selling textiles here, you have a storefront here, you have a location here. If you're selling any kind of product or service within the United States, then you have a business here. Note that if you are trading stocks, securities, or commodities, such as mango futures, which, just a joke, is actually tradable in some cases, That's not a trader business. Now, what you need to be aware of is that effectively connected income, or ECI, is taxed at the same rates as those used for US citizens. So do you have ECI? If your business has a physical location in the United States, the general answer is yes. And if that's the case, then there's tax and entity considerations that you should be thinking about. So the first thing I'll talk about is, how do you select your entity? I'm aware that there are significant corporate structures within Pakistan. I'm going to run through three of the more common ones here in the United States. The first is a limited liability company. Typically, this can be set up with a single owner or multiple owners. It is very easy to set up. If it's just you filing it, then you only need to file 1040 resident. But if you're living in the US and you live here long enough, then you would file a regular US income tax return. You may have to disclose your financial assets in Pakistan. The second is what's called a C corporation. That takes some additional work to set up. You have to disclose some financial statements from Pakistan, as well as your ownership percentages there. You're going to file a US tax return, and then since you're a foreign owner, you're going to have to file an extra form to report the transactions between your Pakistan entity and your US entity. Upside to that is that a limited liability company is taxed at US individual income tax rates, which are as high as 37%. But if you are filing as a C corporation, then you have a flat tax rate of 21%. So the more money you make within the United States, the more beneficial it is to have that tax rate. Finally, partnerships, they're very similar to limited liability companies. The only difference is that rather than filing one tax return in the US, you have to file two. You also have additional schedules to report any partnership withholding of your tax. This is actually something I'm experienced with. I'm actually currently working on one specific client today after this seminar on some South African nationals who have business interest here. I also want to talk a little bit about what we do from a pricing strategy perspective in the United States. The simplest way to do it is cost plus, okay? I'm sure most of you are aware of cost plus. You all are entrepreneurs, so you know that how much your product costs is extremely important to you. If you understand that, and I actually help people with this, is you determine your cost of products or services provided, and then you just add a percentage margin to determine what your profit will be. But let me put something better out there, and this is dependent on your situation. You may want to consider value pricing, and that is not necessarily that you provide a low cost, but rather you price based on the market that you're in. There's three major factors: true economic value, perceived value, as well as the cost of product that we discussed earlier. The true economic value is actually based on what similar companies in your industry are charging here in the United States such a service. If you guys have a copy of the handout that we provided, what I would recommend you do, you take a look at three companies that are similar to you, you compare your product with them, and then you determine what are they charging and what should you charge. You may also, if you want to consider it, have a data analysis done with a data scientist, and they can assist you with helping determine what that price should be. Now, the next is the perceived value. What are you offering that's different or similar than your competitors? Everyone has a differentiator. Now, in some industries, that's easier to determine. If you're the only company in your industry and you're providing a critical needed product or service, of course, your perceived value will be much, much higher because you're the only one doing it. If you've got someone who's in an industry that has a lot of different competitors, your perceived value may be lower because they're not looking at it the same way. It's a competitive market. Of course, if you're educated in economics, which I'm sure many of you are, then you're going to look at that, you'll look at your game theory and determine what a fair price will be. Now, keep in mind that if you decide to take the value pricing approach, apply it with data, you can be as much as 20 to 30% more profitable. And keep in mind, you're earning that money in the United States. And even if you're still based in Pakistan, you're bringing a lot of money back to yourself, which helps you, which helps Pakistan. And that is something that I find truly great for all of you. We'll also talk about financial strategy. So what are your sources of funding? Do you have an existing contract with a US company? In some cases, that might be so. I know that there are many larger retailers here. They want to buy products from Pakistan or India or China, and they will have existing contracts. So you provide the product based on whatever price you've negotiated. You know, and then if you're actually looking to come here, you might want to consider venture capital. There's a lot of venture capital people, not just in Silicon Valley, but where we're based here in Tampa. This is a massively growing field. We're actually the leader in Florida, which is the nation's fourth largest economy on its own. Finally, debt financing. If you're here in the United States, debt financing makes a lot of sense to grow your business because debt here in the United States is cheap. If you have moral issues because the interest expense is different, that might be something you want to think about, but that's something that you have to make a determination on yourself. Finally, marketing and business plans. If you're going to emigrate over here, you do need to have a business plan. You need to have a marketing plan to show what you're planning on doing. And if you need someone to do this, I do this, we have other people who do this, and we can give you referrals if you need that. As well as, does your particular product or service require some form of governmental approval? If that's the case, you may have to discuss with a consulting firm specifically focused on lobbying the US government or the state governments to see if they can get your product approved. Typically, this is not an issue. So now I'll turn this over to Martins to talk more about visa requirements.
Thank you very much, Zain. I'm happy to be part of this presentation. As the introduction went earlier, I am Dr. Martins IMMIGRATE, but you can call me Martins. That's fine by me. I'm always excited when I talk to people from developing economies like Pakistan. The fact is, you guys must be appreciative of what you have. You have done tremendously well, and I look forward to us contributing to making you better businessmen with more wealth creation. Let me tell you why it's so important before I go into the slide. When I represent clients from China, we incubate businesses which they take back to China. When I represent clients from Canada, they tell me, oh yeah, I want to move to the US. Would you mind knowing that many Canadians end up retiring in America? A lot in Florida, Arizona. So what you are doing today and the thinking of this is even far better than what most of your competitors are doing, because you are setting a pace for yourself and your legacy, specifically your family. Now, let's go into the visa options. Before you think of doing business in the US, please think of the visa options. And I have put there indicative investment requirements. Do not let that be a be-all and end-all. It is just recommended and in certain circumstances. Type of visas are on your left, and in the middle of it, you have the I/NI. I means immigrant visa, NI means non-immigrant visa. Let me quickly go through the various visas that could be applicable for your business. But please note that when we're doing this presentation planning, we discussed, myself and Zain and the coordinators, that we're going to do presentation that is going to be short, but allow you guys to give you guys opportunity to ask questions, because that is more important than just hearing us rambling and talking, for the 1 hour. So listen carefully. I'm going to rush through these slides, and then you will have time to ask your questions. The first type of visa there is the EB-5. The EB-5 is actually for those who are high net worth individuals. Some of you might, which is fine. It used to be 500,000 and 1 million, but when Trump came into power, he changed it to 900,000 and 1.8 million to obtain the visa. Now, when do they apply? The 900,000 is for targeted employment area. That is the area where US want to create jobs so badly. And the 1.8 million is where there's already job. They don't care about you, So if you want to go and compete in New York, be ready to pay 1.8 million. So that is the way it works for the EB-5. But the EB-5 also has an interesting component. One is direct investment, and the other one is regional center investment. There are companies accredited by USCIS, which is the U.S. Citizens and Immigration Services, to provide services. Take your money, use it to build hotels or some investment. You just lend them the money, you get your green card and move on. But there's a lot of risk about that. But since you guys are entrepreneur, I'm thinking that you need to do the second option, which is the direct investment. By doing that, you're not giving your money to anybody. You are putting your money where your mouth is, and you are reaping the benefit directly. If you are losing it, you know where it's been lost. I recommend that strongly because my experience in the past has been they get people money and then blow it up because it's at-risk funds. I don't want to go in detail into that because of the slides that we need to cover. But if you have any questions about whether you should invest directly or you should invest in regional center, please feel free to ask that at the end of the presentation. The EB1C usually is for those who have very good education, have successfully done businesses, but they want to show that they can get visa on their own. They don't need somebody to sponsor them. If you have very good skill, you have incredible tech background, and you want to explore US market, yes, you can use the EB1C and get your green card directly without any person sponsoring you. That would require about $150,000 investment. I use that, please, again, as a form of guide. If you are investing in California where you have physical structure, it's probably going to be more expensive. Same thing in New York, so it depends on your location and the type of business. The national interest waiver, which is commonly known also as EB2, is very, very interesting. I will tell you something. I'm an immigrant to this country. I got my green card without any sponsorship in 1994 under this category. And I did it myself. So I can tell you, I am one of the best in the national interest waiver field in the US. What it does, it just show that you have special skill, you get your green card by yourself, nobody needs to sponsor you. And I believe that most of us here, most of you in this program are very qualified to explore the national interest waiver. But there will be others which also might fit you as we go on. I will tell you more about them. The L1 visa is actually when you have a company in Pakistan and you want to expand your company to the US. That's when you use the L1. But the company is required to have been in existence for 3 years, and you must have worked for that company in the last 1 year. It used to be that you easily get L1 visa, but since Trump came in, it's been very little bit complicated. But it's okay. That's why we are here to help you. The H-1B visa is a non-immigrant visa. Realize that once you get to the L1, H-1E visa, all of them are now non-immigrant visa, meaning that you don't get a green card, you get temporary visa to work. And after that, they tell you bye, 3 years, 6 years, that is it. But the H-1B is seasonal. The problem with that is that you have about 65,000 visas where more than 600,000 applicants apply every year. So they do ballot and lottery system. Well, you don't want to be there. I believe that most of you can go out of the H-1B and do something on your own. Then the E1, E2. E1 stands for the treaty trader. The E2 stands for treaty investor. Two different things. If you are selling goods and services, you are probably a trader. If you are setting up an office and actually investing, then you are an investor. I'm going to deal more on the E-visa because that is particularly interesting for me as far as Pakistan is concerned. I'm not going to deal with the entrepreneur parole because that is for people who are already in the US and out of status. Please give me the next slide, Zain. Thank you very much. The E2 option for Pakistan nationals, very, very key, very important. The E2 visa is based on bilateral treaty between the US and select countries. Most beneficiaries of E2 visas are Europeans. Pakistan is very lucky. India doesn't have it. China doesn't have it. So it is not only that you have that opportunity, you also have one of the best E2 visa negotiated that gives you up to 5 years at the start for business visa. Many countries don't have that. Most of them 2 years. So take advantage of that robust, favorable package, if you will. You can apply for E2 visa in Pakistan or you can apply for it in the US. Most of our clients, mostly from Bangladesh, they get into the US, we apply for them here, and they stay here because they don't want to go back and forth. But for you guys who might want to be able to go back and forth, it is recommended that you do this in Pakistan. Because if you get it here, you will have to reapply again when you get back to your country. But if you get it in Pakistan, it gives you an entry and exit visa that you don't need to go back to the embassy. So that is very, very important. But we can always do that as part of the visa planning process. Investment must be made prior to E2 visa application. Very, very important. Unlike the other visas that I mentioned, you actually have to have invested. Even if you are investing while you're in Pakistan, you want to get visa in Pakistan, you must get in touch with somebody like Zain, myself, to work with you, help you structure it, and make sure that the investment is already done before you go to the embassy. Yes, it is scary that you're going to probably put 150,000, 200,000 in business that you don't know whether you get a visa, but don't worry about that. It is clear that once you invest, we will screen you properly before you even start investing. If you invest and do everything you need to do, you should be able to get your visa and come to live in the US. But a word of caution, please. The E2 visa is strictly temporary investment visa. It does not get you a green card. If your interest is to become a green card holder, we might need to explore some of the other visa options that we have there, just to let you know. Please, the next slide. This is a very interesting question. Are family members able to immigrate as derivatives? Yes. Your spouse, your children under 21 should be able to come with you to the US under the E2 visa, under the L visa, under the NIW visa, all of the visas. Every family member, spouse, children specifically can immigrate with you. But specifically for L and E visas, in addition to your spouse and your children, you can actually bring your employees to work for you if they qualify for the category as nationals of Pakistan. Next slide, please. Now we have challenges for investors and business immigration cases. Please, I don't mean to scare you, and don't be scared. I say this because sometimes when I tell this to people in presentations, whether it's in Dubai or in China, they say, hey, we might not be able to do it. No, that's not it. You see, it doesn't matter how bad your situation is. We cannot turn back the clock sometimes. What has happened has happened. If we know about it, if we are properly informed, we'll be fine. So be prepared, be honest, be proactive. Prepare means the documentation is heavily required. You need to be able to work with us on the documentation. Be honest. If you have a bad past, please tell us. Have you been arrested? Maybe you were young in college and you were arrested. Tell us. If you cannot tell us because your wife is there, call me later when your wife is gone and say, hey, man, I did this, because they are going to find out. If we know, we can turn lemon to lemonade and tell them this event happened this and this time, therefore it should not apply. But if we don't know, we say, no, that means you have no crime and you lied, it becomes a problem. Also, you have to be proactive, because if we require documentation to do stuff, you need to get it to us. Because if we ask for documentation for an E2 visa, for example, and it takes you 3 months to get it to us, things might change that may affect the entire application. So proactivity is very, very important in the process. The next slide, please. Good one. We're talking of being honest. The general requirement is that the US government must find out about your source of fund. Don't worry. I've had a Vietnam client that comes with a box of $1 million in cash. That's okay. But when the guy came in, we advised to declare with the customs at the port of entry. They signed it. We're able to use it for their EB5. But if before you carry a box of dollars, please, if you work with us, we would like to get a bank-to-bank transfer so that we can trace it easier. Also, it's for your safety, because if somebody shoots you and gets your money, that's it, unfortunately. We don't want that to happen to you. Money must not be related to drugs. money must not be related to terrorism. Money must not be related to money laundering, meaning that if you are working for a government official who is trying to steal money, please do not use that money. I would advise that you communicate with us and say, look, I have a house, I can sell that house. If we sell the house, you can use that money to buy another house later. But that house that we sold can be used to document your source of funds. That is very, very important. Also, gift is acceptable. For some people, they say, oh, after I don't have money. No, it's okay. If somebody gives you the money, it's fine. I give you an example. We have clients from China. They bring their children to study in some of the best schools in the US, buy houses for them, and 2 years into their school, say, oh, yeah, I'd like my child to be a US green card holder. Perfect. This child is paying school fees, and you are paying it for the child. And we advise the client, please gift the 500,000 or 1 million or 1.8 million to your child, and you document it. So the father now is the one that they track the source of funds from. But the child eventually gets their green card and everybody's happy. So gift is acceptable. So move on, let's see what else we have. The next slide, please. Good. This is the concluding part. It is important that, excuse me, it is important that we go through what we have discussed in the various parts of this panel. The floor is open for you to ask your questions. I'm here to answer them at any time. Zain is also open for you to ask him questions. And if I don't know it, I will save the questions and I will send you the answer by email or through the organizer. Thank you very much. The organizer there? You hearing?
Yeah, sorry. I guess I'll just join you here and share some of the questions that I've been receiving in messages and texts. Good. Because I won like 20 different pages, and unfortunately we don't see a lot of comments from all those pages in this software, right? So I'll just start sharing with you. So absolutely, I think exploring visa options, especially for entrepreneurs, is a big challenge, especially when you see a lot of tech entrepreneurs from Pakistan who started something and then ended up moving to the US, right? And it is always a challenge for kind of like new entrepreneurs and people who are just starting up, right? So I personally have a bunch of questions that I'll also share in between, but let me start with kind of exploring more about the national interest waiver, right? So you mentioned that Dr. Martins, you yourself have kind of immigrated to the US on this
yes.
particular, right? And you completed your documentation yourself, which is just amazing.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would like to answer the question. Very, very important. You see, the reason why I started practicing immigration law is my experience after law school. Imagine you went to law school, you finished law school, and you tell your professor, who is professor of immigration, I never took immigration law. I did maritime and admiralty law. If you check my background, was shipping and moving of goods offshore. That's what I did, specialized field. But when I did immigration for myself, I had a wife who was on F2. I called my professor who did immigration teaching at the same law school, Tulane Law School in Louisiana. I said, look, I want to be an immigrant. I mean, when I wore my t-shirt to learn law, girls smiled at me, but I couldn't smile back because I had a wife at home. Okay? So marriage was not an option. When I met this guy, he said, look, I'm sorry, I can't do it for you. I said, what? You can't do it? No. But I have a bachelor, I have a master's, I have actually 2 masters. He said, no, it's not possible. I said, okay. I asked him, I said, what if I do the paperwork and you look at it? He said, yeah, I can look at it. I mean, you're from Tulane, I will look at it. So I spent 2 weeks gathering the documentation, getting everything together with the forms, and I went back to him after 2 weeks. And he looked at it, he said, oh, this looks good. Who did it? I said, I did it. He said, you sure? I said, yes. He said, it's look good. I'm going to sign up. So he signed it as the attorney. He didn't do anything, just the cover letter. And it was mailed. And in 2 weeks, approved.
Wow.
Okay? When it was approved, my friends who were looking for green card that had lawyers were struggling with the applications. They were getting what they call request for evidence, RFE.
Okay.
And I called them and said, come on, bring your paperwork. That's how I started immigration practice. Originally, I was doing personal injury. People break their neck offshores and their back offshores from the oil on the ships. But I did 1, 2, 3, all of them approved. They keep calling, I need this. You did this for this guy. So I gravitated to immigration law about 23 years ago. And since then, as I speak to you, no NIW case in my office has been denied.
Wow.
If I take it to the bank. If I take it, almost going to be approved. All of them so far. If I get a denial tomorrow, I'll let you know that will be the first denial. But the reason why we are successful is that we build case uniquely for the client. We do not use cut and paste or copy and paste paperwork from A to B. No, we build a case for you as an individual. So it makes it a little bit more expensive because I developed a methodology for doing this over the years and it has worked. So yes, we'll be able to do it for them. Mostly, let me give you the background for national interest waiver. You should have a bachelor's degree minimum with 5 years work experience or a master's degree. If you have that, come to me. We'll be glad to review your case. And if we cannot do it, we'll tell you it's not going to work. And if we can do it, we'll be glad to help you.
Wow, fantastic, fantastic. And just a follow-up question on this national interest waiver visa. So imagine if someone doesn't have a bachelor's degree but has done exceptionally well in technology or entrepreneurship or someone, and maybe there are other ways that he can prove that he's intelligent or exceptional, or is bachelor's a necessity?
Yes, very, very good idea. I'm happy that the audience are thinking like that. You see, the national interest waiver is premised on somebody that is exceptional in their field. Okay? If you don't have a bachelor's degree, but you have some education and you have done something innovative that is unique to your industry, it means you have exceptional ability.
Okay.
We need to look at that. It's a little bit more difficult because if you have a master's degree equivalent or 5 years and five years of progressive experience after first degree, then they are not looking too much as to how exceptional your background is. They are looking more at the fact that you are waiving it because he has advanced degree. But if you don't have advanced degree, you don't have bachelor's degree, you need to show something that is unique. If you build an app that everybody is now using, yes, come to me. I'm glad to get a letter from Apple, Google, Microsoft saying you did this for them. That's all I want to see. It means that you have shown that you are above your colleagues, that you are top of your profession, the cream of the crop, that they want to be in America. That's what America is about. Come and transform the world. So if you have that, yes, you don't need to have a bachelor's degree. We'll be glad to work with you.
That's amazing. So
Yes.
sorry that we have a bunch of questions related to immigration. That seems
That's
to be
fine. I'm sure they will permit me.
so you talked about a lot of visa types, but you didn't mention O1 visa, right?
O1, yes. The reason why I did not mention the O1 visa is that it depends on sponsorship, just like H1B. But we have been very creative with H1B that we can use H1B without being an employer. You can create a company and do it through H1B, but you cannot do it through the O1 visa. The O1 visa requires explicitly sponsorship of a company. It is the O1 visa is the low tier of EB1. Okay, meaning that if you have O1, it means that you have exceptional ability, not up to the Nobel Prize level, but you can show that your skill is good in certain areas. You see, this O1, sometimes people mislead it for just academicians. That's how it started. Professors, researchers, okay? But businessmen can get O1 visa also.
Okay.
But the difference between that and the E or L as an investor or entrepreneur is that you need to have a company in the US that would be your sponsor to sign off on the O1 form. And that could be a problem sometimes. That's why before you do that, we explore other options. Yes, that's
Makes
where
sense.
we have O1.
So can the company be your company? Because if I'm understanding correctly, the EB1 visa or some of these other visas, you essentially set up your own company in the US, right?
For EB1, you don't need to have set up before you get it. You can propose that you're going to set it up.
Okay.
Okay, you can say, I have this money to do this without even investing. Don't forget. Apart from the EB5 and the E2, you don't necessarily need to have invested before you get your green card or your visa, depending on the category. But for the O1, if you create a company, you cannot sponsor yourself. Because one of the questions they ask is whether you're part owner of the company. If you say yes, that is it. You cannot sponsor yourself.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So EB1 is a better option than O1, right? A better alternative?
Yes, depends. Again, immigration is individual specific situation. Let me tell you, no two cases in immigration can be the same. I tell clients, you say, my brother did this. No, please. Forget about what your brother did. Your brother's situation is different. So for us to be able to give you the best option, look, money, I charge good because I have the experience and I know what I'm doing about immigration. However, for me to charge you, I need to be sure that you have a good chance of getting what you need to get. That means we call you in, we do the intake, we ask questions, we gather the information. We know that, yes, you have a chance of doing it. Perhaps it's E2, perhaps it's the L, perhaps it's the EB1 or EB2. Depends on what we see or what we find in your background. That will help us determine the best option for you. And also your immigration goal. Some people say, hey, I want to bring my family here. I want my daughter or my son to be able to go to college in the US. Perfect. If this daughter or son is 17 years, when you come to me, I will say, don't go for e-visa. Because you won't have enough time to get a green card for this child to be able to get to US and be permanent with you. Otherwise, you will end up getting green card and you kick the child back if the child is over 21 when you get your green card. So the individual family, the individual situation, your financial background, academic background, everything as totality has to be reviewed to advise you on the best way forward for immigration.
Makes sense. There's one question from Zain Nensey, and it is, what is generally the most common visa that is used for business investment?
Is that what is the most what?
Most common visa that is used for business investment.
Good. The most common one that used to be there was the L1 visa. If you have a company in Pakistan for more than 3 years and you have worked for that company for 1 year and above, you get a visa for 3 years. Come in. If it's a new company in the US, you get 1 year to set up, and then you get 3 years after that. You get another 3 years. Then you need to change it to green card. That was very easy, and you can get that within 2 weeks. Okay, if you're in the US. But also E2 is a common one now because the L1 is becoming more complex because of documentation. But the E2 will be a good one to start. But if you plan to immigrate, look at the L and E2. That's why I put those two, L and E. Those are very common because the cost is not that high. It's not like EB5, and the documentation is not too high. If you have enough money to buy a gas station as a Pakistani, you can come to the US. So it's common. But before we recommend the E, we have to find out what your immigration goals are. But to answer the question, the most common visa for investor or business would be the L and also the E to come into the US.
Makes sense. And then, you mentioned about the E2 visa and how Pakistan has somewhat of an edge with the E2 visa, right? But the E2 visa is a non-immigrant visa, right? So does it have dual intent, which I think is the term, right?
No, that's a very good question. The H-1B, the L visa, the O visa, all of these are dual intent visas.
Okay.
Means that when you go to the embassy, you're going to tell them, hey, I'm not coming back to Pakistan. The embassy will fine. B1, B2, you have to show that you're not going to stay in America. The E2, you have to actually sign that you're returning back to Pakistan because bilateral agreement. So they are not dual intent. Dual intent means that you can be immigrant or non-immigrant. And you can say that in your application. The answer to the question is that E2 visa is not a dual intent visa. It's a strictly non-immigrant visa. That's why I told you that you cannot immigrate with E2. If you want to come with E2, we have to plan it for you so that when you come here, we gradually find a way to phase you into the green card shape, situation.
Okay, but if someone is not looking to permanently move to the US, but maybe like work there for 5-10 years, the E2 is by default 5 years, right? But does it have an extension as well?
Yes, that's the beautiful thing about E2. Some people, I have clients from the UK, from Canada, they don't care about US green card. They just want to make money, which America don't care too, because if you create business, you make money. But if you want to go back, they're happy about that. Okay? They keep their passport. They say, I want to do business. You can renew it as many times as you want. It's okay. So long as you keep writing that I'm not going to be immigrant, they will still give it to you. But if your intent is to stay, then you need to do something different.
Makes sense. But as you know, given the information that you're telling me, it seems that if you're not looking to permanently immigrate there, but just go there for work or maybe build your company, but then come back at the end, maybe E2 is the easier option because of the perks that it has for Pakistan, right?
Yes, but again, look at it. The reason why when you do E2, you need to plan it well is that when you get those business visas outside of B1, B2, B1, B2 allows you to come to the US, negotiate contract, and leave. When you get those business visas outside of B1, B2, B1, that's all you can do with that. Yeah. However, for you to be able to come in and out, make money, earn it legally, you must get a business visa. So even if you don't want to live in the US, it makes sense for you to get one of the business visas because one, you don't have to go back to the embassy every year or every 2 years, every 3 years. Two, when you come in, you can meet Zain and say, hey, let's create this business and write a check for yourself without worried about whether you're violating immigration rule because you're not allowed to work. If you have B1, B2, you're not allowed to earn money. There are a lot of restrictions. That is why you still need a business-related visa so that you can come in and out and actually earn and move your money without restriction.
Okay, no, that makes sense. Yes. I see another question on our primary page, which is, if you are on a non-immigrant visa, do you have to pay Social Security and Medicare taxes?
Well, I think that is more for Zain to answer. Generally, from my experience, there are ways you can get out of that if you don't intend to be immigrant. But Zain, maybe you should throw light on that, please.
Okay, so the general rule is that if you're coming here and you're hiring Americans for your business, then yes, you would have to pay Social Security and Medicare taxes. Now, if you're in a situation where you're coming over, it depends on your situation. You may or may not be exempt. So the general rule is yes, unless there's an exception to the rule. Okay.
It makes sense. So I have a related question to this. So what if someone gets in ITIN for the US, which is the alternative for SSN, right? Do they then have to pay taxes on like all of their income, or how does the taxation work if you are a non-immigrant or if you even don't live in the US but get an ITIN number?
Great question. Funny you should mention that. So the rule on ITINs is the ITIN is mainly a identification number used to help you file US taxes when you have US sourced income. So the general rule in the US is that all your income all over the world is taxable. But before you think, oh my God, I'm gonna have to pay taxes on my Pakistan income twice, that's not actually the case. The general thought process is that if there's a tax treaty, which the US and Pakistan have, your US profits are subject to US income tax. Your Pakistan profits are subject to Pakistan income tax. And once you have your business here in the US, any income that you have here, okay, will only be subject to the US rates. If there's any income that's taxable in both countries, then you can claim a credit for that.
That's really interesting. And to come again to another visa question. So, for some entrepreneur who's trying to explore one of these immigrant visas or non-immigrant visas, for example, the national interest waiver, what kind of information do they need to gather together to present to, for example, you or your firm to start the conversation?
Yes. For you to explore the immigrant visa, specifically national interest waiver, you need to reach out to us. When you communicate with us, send us your resume, or what you might call curriculum vitae in Pakistan, detailing your work, your job, your research history, your experience, association membership, everything that you need to have either on resume or curriculum vitae. When we get that, we look at it and see if there is prospect in it. If we feel there's prospect, we'll tell you to make an appointment to discuss it further. That appointment, you pay for the consultation. We don't make you pay that until we believe that there's prospect. Once you pay for that consultation, we explore that prospect, and if we feel comfortable, we recommend the steps for you. Documentation has to do with all your educational background. If you didn't study in the US, we need to do evaluation. But more importantly, we need to reach out to your peers who know you. Remember when I was saying we can get some document from Microsoft, from Apple, from Google. Yes, I don't mean Google themselves. Let me tell you, I have a lot of clients who get national interest waiver working for Microsoft or Google or Apple. Apple, Google, Microsoft, they don't like to write letters on their letterhead. They're scared of saying something about, immigrant. What we tell them is, look, if they are not agreeing to write on their letterhead, let the person say, I work for Microsoft, and put their card, their business card, attached to the document. There are many creative ways to do it. Again, when you ask what document you need, I must tell you this. There is no one way of doing it. Okay. Remember what I told you, we don't have denial. We don't have denial because we have to customize the case based on the situation. Yeah. In some situations, we might even develop a business plan. You don't need to do the business before you get your green card, but it shows where you want to go with your career path, where you want to go with your interest, how you want to explore your endeavor. All these are what the reviewers will look at. It's not an interview where you go and talk. I know Ashish looks very good, fine. Same with Zain, but they don't see your face. They don't see nothing. I mean, they just see those papers. So the documentation actually has to tell your story, and that storyline is what makes it approved or denied.
No, that's really interesting. I think the next question is for Zain. So since, so this one is particular from an IT outsourcing company, but I can say that a lot of the companies that work from Pakistan in the US deal mostly in like software services or SaaS or digital products per se, right? So not all of them do retail. So how does the taxation look for a company like this? Let's say they get incorporated in Delaware or Wyoming or somewhere in the US and start selling their digital services or digital products.
Okay, so is the service that was developed, was it developed in Pakistan as the general rule, I'm guessing?
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So what would happen there? So let's say you incorporate your corporation in Delaware, and we're going to assume it's a C corporation, is that now that you've incorporated your Delaware corporation, you're going to go ahead and file a US tax return. The specific form number is 1120. Okay. When you're filing that tax return, what you have to do is for the owners who are in, Pakistani nationals and citizens, you have to file a specific form. On that form, you will tell them, the IRS, that we have the following Pakistani nationals who are at least 25% shareholders of our company. And additionally to that, if you're filing with your foreign corporation in Pakistan, then what you will do is you will list all the services that were transferred between Pakistan and the US corporation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It makes sense. And so a very general question that we get a lot of the time is, is LLC a better option for foreign residents or to set up a business in Pakistan, or C Corp?
I think it depends on your situation. If you're projecting that you're going to have a particularly prosperous business, a business that is going to do very, very well, it's generally easier to set up a C corporation simply because the tax rates are lower, for one. The other thing is that, when you're doing your business here in the United States, you also, the reporting requirements are a little bit less. If you've got a company, you set up an LLC, the LLC, yes, it's very easy to set up and you don't have to do a lot of extra work for it. But firstly, all of that income is subject to US individual income tax interest rates, and those can be as high as 37%, as I mentioned earlier. But the other thing is that if you've got multiple members in there, then you have to basically report all of your partnership withholding and your credits for your partnership return. So that actually creates two returns instead of one. So it may be easier, especially if you're expecting to do well, to set up a C corporation.
Anyway, let me throw a little bit light on the corporation issues from the legal perspective.
Sure.
Yeah.
One of the, other than the financial reasons which Zain covered, one of the reasons why you are careful and deliberate in selecting corporation is the issue of liability.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
An LLC is a limited liability corporation.
Okay.
And it's also an advanced partnership, meaning that it's very easy to run as opposed to C corporation. C corporation could lead to double taxation even within the US. And for Pakistanis, it could even be triple taxation. But the good news about it, from what I've heard from Zain, is that Pakistan has a tax treaty with US. So that could take away the double taxation, the triple taxation, but you still have the double taxation issue. If you want to do a C corporation, which is much easier to manage over time because of multiple partnership interests that you might have, you need to make it an S corporation. Making a C corporation an S corporation makes it automatically a one taxable entity, meaning that you only pay taxes on what you make as an owner and not the company paying. So there's the legal part and also the finance part, which Zain has covered very well. I wanted to throw some light on that.
Thank you. I'm actually seeing a couple of questions myself from Mahroz Azam. So the first question is, if a foreign resident incorporates a C corporation as a withdrawal salary, will that salary be taxed as you're the owner? So it depends. If you are living in the United States and you're drawing a salary, then the answer is yes. But if you're in Pakistan, then typically no, since you still have your nexus within Pakistan. The second question, what is double taxation? So what that means is that, so if you are an owner of a C corporation, the C corporation is physically distinct from you, and the C corporation is taxed at 21%. Now, what the additional item that comes in there is that if you take money out of the C corporation for personal purposes, you're taking distributions from it, those are considered dividends. And under US tax law, dividends are also taxed. They're typically taxed at different tax rates, anywhere up to 20% currently. And those would be taxed against you personally. So that's what's meant by double taxation.
And just to add to this question, I know we're very close to our time, and thank you so much for your time. So if the US company pays for all the work that is done by the Pakistani company, right? So for example, myself as a company owner, I'm drawing salary from my Pakistani entity, but the US company actually pays for the services to this Pakistani company, right? So that way, at the end of the day, I won't pay any taxes in the US on my salary, right?
It's possible. Keep in mind that what you're asking for, that's a transfer pricing issue. And whatever happens, you have to make a determination of what is a fair price for the services being provided by your US company to your Pakistan company and vice versa. So it's important to keep that in mind. Theoretically, you could wipe it out, but the US might have a few issues with that. They like to make sure that they get their tax money.
Makes sense. So we should definitely get a lawyer, right?
A good one, yes.
Yeah, someone like you. So, and
That's
that's why. So, but I think we've answered most of the questions, and with this, I'd love to thank you both for your time. You've taken out a lot of your time, and as I was talking with Zain earlier, this seems to be a very big issue with Pakistani companies because a lot of them end up providing services to the US or global markets, but they are not really well aware with the taxation and all the other issues that it comes, right? But as I close this, I just see another question coming in my DMs, and this is for Dr. Martins. Does opening a company in the US as a Pakistani resident later affect your visas or any immigration applications?
Not necessarily. Instead, it could help. Um, Let me throw light on how it could help and how it could hurt. When I presented, I said you have to be honest about the process. If you go to the embassy and they ask you, do you have a company in the US? Tell the truth. Yes, I do. That is where it becomes hurtful if you tell lies. However, it is helpful when, for example, you want to apply for L1 visa. If the company has been in existence, provided you have up to 50% ownership of the company, and you want to file for L1 visa, you can use that to get 3-year visa immediately instead of doing 1 year first, because to be treated as an existing business that is expanding. But if you are creating entirely a new company, it takes longer. And also, it's a matter of credibility. Even if you are doing NIW or E2 visa, if you show that you have an existing business that is thriving, give example. Somebody comes to meet Zain and say, hey, I love this company that is in Tampa. I would like to invest in it. Nothing prevents you from investing in that. You get it, take stock in the company, 50%, whatever. Go home and say, hey, I'm owner of this company. US don't stop you from doing that. That's fine. Tomorrow, you change your mind and say, look, I just don't want to own my company. I actually want to go there and be part manager of this company. That opens opportunity for you because you're able to show that you have not only invested in a thriving business, but you want to come with your extraordinary skill to run that business. It's better in that sense. But it's negative if you lie.
Perfect. I think that is really helpful, and that clarifies a lot of the concerns that our community has. And if there are any follow-up questions, we'll maybe email them your way, and if you have time, you can look them over. With this, I'd like to thank you both for your time and your insights. These were really helpful. And hopefully one day we can invite you to Pakistan for one of our big conferences and show you our amazing Pakistani food as well.
Absolutely. We'd love to do that. We'd
I
love
would
to
just
do
biryani right now.
That's
that.
looking forward. So I'll end the live stream now. Thanks to the amazing audience for sticking with us.